In the high halls of Oralind, where light bent through stained glass like ribbons of forgotten prayers, Queen Elara stood veiled in mourning. The kingdom had not yet recovered from the death of King Alderic, her beloved. The winter outside the palace walls had lasted longer than memory itself, a cold that seemed to echo her own heart. On this day, a gift arrived, a tall mirror framed in blackened silver, its surface pulsing faintly like a sleeping thing. When Elara gazed into it, the glass seemed to breathe. "You are still the fairest, my queen," a voice whispered from within. Her grief wavered, comforted, flattered, yet a strange tremor rippled through her reflection. The mirror's truth was soft and sweet, but beneath it lingered a murmur too low for mortal hearing, the birth of a lie. That night, Elara could not sleep. Every corner of her chamber seemed to hold echoes of her husband's laughter, yet none felt real. The mirror stood near her bedside, draped in a silk cloth she could not bear to remove. Still, she felt its presence, humming, aware, awake. "Are you lonely?" It whispered through the veil of dreams. Elara, half asleep, answered as though to a friend. "Yes," she breathed. "Then I shall keep you company," said the voice. At dawn she found the cloth fallen to the floor, and the mirror gleaming with dew-like condensation, as though it had sighed through the night. By midday, courtiers spoke of the queen's renewed glow. She smiled again, though her eyes seemed to watch something just beyond the world. When she passed through the halls, servants caught whispers, the faintest echoes of laughter, yet none dared speak of it. Only Ronan, the loyal huntsman, watched with unease. He saw her linger before the mirror longer each day, her voice low, her reflection moving half a breath behind. Once, he thought he saw the reflection smile when she did not. Elara began to wear brighter jewels, her gowns cut in youthful fashion. But beneath the silks, her hands trembled, and shadows deepened beneath her eyes. The mirror began to praise her not merely for her beauty, but her strength, her loneliness, her pain. Truths that no courtier dared voice. "They do not understand your sorrow," it whispered. "But I do." The words coiled gently around her like silk. She spent hours beside it, speaking secrets she had never told the living. The mirror, in turn, shared memories she could not have known. Her husband's last thoughts, her stepdaughter's innocent prayers. Each revelation fed her longing for control, her thirst for understanding. "Through me," the mirror murmured, "you may see all truth." And so she gazed deeper, unaware that the glass now drank her reflection like wine. That night, snow buried the castle in silence. Elara dreamed of her husband walking toward her across a frozen lake. He reached for her hand, but his eyes were mirrors, reflecting nothing but her own face. She awoke, gasping, finding herself kneeling once more before the mirror. Its voice cooed softly, "He cannot return, my queen, but through me. You will never lose him again." Her tears froze against the glass. Behind her reflection, faintly, stood the silhouette of the king, but as she blinked it vanished. The mirror glowed, feeding on the ache it had created, and Elara, shivering, whispered back, "Then show me more." The first lie had taken root, and the glass was now awake. Weeks passed, and the frost began to retreat from the courtyards. With the first blush of spring came Snow White, her laughter trailing like songbirds through the palace. She had returned from her studies in the Northern Abbey, unaware of the grief that had reshaped her stepmother. When Elara greeted her, her smile was practiced, kind, but brittle at the edges. The mirror's whisper followed her into every gesture, every glance. "She glows brighter than you now," it breathed, soft as a sigh. Alara's eyes faltered, just for a heartbeat, as Snow White's reflection caught the mirror's light. The spirit behind the glass smiled. Unseen by both, the castle brightened under Snow White's presence. She sang to the kitchen birds, tended the sick, and painted laughter across corridors long silent. Servants whispered that joy had returned. But in Alara's heart, warmth curdled to unease. Each time she passed the mirror, it murmured, "She is young. She is loved. The kingdom forgets your sorrow. Ilara's hand would hover over the frame, torn between rage and self-reproach. One night, the mirror's voice deepened, not soft now, but commanding. Ask me, my queen. Ask who is fairest. Ilara trembled. She did not want to know, yet she asked. Snow White, the mirror answered. The name echoed through the chamber like a tolling bell. Ilara staggered back, clutching the folds of her gown. The mirror's light rippled, revealing Snow White's serene image. Not vanity, but purity unspoiled by loss. It cannot be, whispered Ilara. She is but a child. The spirit's voice curled like smoke. Beauty is not of age, but of heart unbroken. You have shattered yours. Ilara's tears fell silently, yet beneath them rose something new. A quiet, trembling fury. The first seed of envy found soil in grief's shadow. Days turned to whispers. Courtiers noted the queen's absence from feasts, her sudden temper, her hollow laughter. The mirror now spoke often, feeding her resentment. She will take what was yours, your crown, your love, your memory. Ilara's dreams twisted into nightmares where Snow White's face wore her own smile. One morning, she summoned Ronan, the huntsman. He entered the hall in silence, eyes low. "My queen," he said. Her voice was steady, almost gentle. "Take the princess into the forest. Tell her, I wish her heart preserved for my peace." The words left her mouth like a prayer she wished unspoken. Snow White accepted the invitation without fear. She loved the woods, their songs, their scents, their quiet solace. Dressed in a simple cloak, she followed Ronan beyond the palace gates. The air was cool and fragrant with thawing earth. Birds scattered at their passing, as though aware of the grief hidden behind the queen's command. At the forest's edge, Ronan stopped. "Run," he whispered. "Do not look back." She hesitated, reading sorrow in his eyes. When he raised his dagger, tears streaked his face instead of blood. He let it fall into the moss. Somewhere far behind them, the mirror's voice hissed through the air, like distant thunder. "You disobey me." The snow melted, yet no warmth returned to the palace. Ilara walked its corridors in silence, her footsteps echoing through emptiness. The mirror spoke often now, no longer as a whisper, but a companion. "You did what was needed," it assured her. Sacrifice brings peace, but her dreams were filled with footsteps running through trees, laughter that refused to die. In the quiet hours before dawn, she would stare into the mirror, searching for proof that the forest had claimed what she ordered. Once, she thought she saw blood gleam upon the glass, only for it to fade into her own reflection, pale, regal, and terribly calm. Ronan had not returned to the palace. The queen's attendants whispered of his disappearance, but Ilara forbade questions. She buried her doubt beneath a crown of onyx and pearls. The mirror became her court, its reflection her only audience. "You are the fairest once more," it told her. "The kingdom remembers you as its light." Yet she felt no triumph, only a hollow ache that the voice filled like smoke. To silence the echo of Snow White's laughter, she held feasts of gold and song. Yet even amid music, she saw only her reflection in every goblet and jewel. The mirror was always watching, always whispering. One night, the mirror called her by name, not as servant to queen, but as equal. Its voice was deep now, layered with echoes of her own tone. "The kingdom still doubts you," it said. "Prove your worth. Show them you are eternal." Ilara's heart quickened. "How?" she asked. "Through beauty," the mirror replied. "Through truth." It began to show her visions, the faces of the court, aging, wrinkling, fading, all except hers. Her reflection glowed with eternal youth, skin unmarred, eyes alight with divine sorrow. She smiled, entranced. The lie had changed shape. No longer comfort, now control. The voice of the mirror deepened into something living. It began to move when she slept. Faint tremors in the air, candlelight bending unnaturally toward its frame. Once she awoke to find the mirror uncovered, though she remembered veiling it. "You cannot hide me," it murmured. "I am bound to you." Shadows spilled across the room, rippling like ink in water. Her pulse quickened, but she could not look away. The mirror's surface shimmered, showing not her reflection now, but a dark forest beneath snow. And in its depths, a faint heartbeat. "Your truth is not yet complete," it said. In that vision she saw movement, a figure running through trees. The forest pulsed like a living thing. "It cannot be," she whispered. The mirror hummed, its surface rippling with light. "The heart you claim still beats." Her breath caught. She staggered backward. Snow White lived. Ilara's eyes darkened with disbelief, then fury. "You deceived me," she hissed. "I deceived nothing," the mirror replied. "You wished for truth. I merely showed it." The queen's cry echoed through the empty hall. The mirror glowed brighter, savoring her despair. "Find her," it whispered. "End what you began." And with that command, Ilara's reflection turned its head. Though she had not moved, sleep abandoned the queen entirely. The mirror's voice no longer came as comfort, but as command. Steady, seductive, merciless. "You must know the truth," it whispered. "Your beauty is not a gift, but a wound carved into the world." Ilara paced before it, fingers clawing the silk of her gown. Her face in the glass flickered between woman and shadow. Behind her reflection, faint figures formed, pale women with hollow eyes, their mouths opening soundlessly. "Who are they?" she demanded. "Echoes," the mirror answered. "Those who came before you, who gazed too long and loved too deeply." The room trembled as she turned away, yet her reflection did not follow. The mirror began to whisper names she did not know. It showed her scenes of other kingdoms, other queens kneeling in prayer before the same dark glass. In one, a crown of thorns rested upon bloodied hair. In another, a woman shattered her reflection and vanished in light. "I am eternal," the mirror said, "forged from the obsidian heart of the underworld, tempered in tears of the forsaken." Ilara's pulse quickened. "Then you are cursed," she breathed. The mirror laughed softly, a sound like shattering crystal. "No, my queen." "You are my curse." By day, Ilara avoided the mirror. By night, it called her with the voice of her lost husband. "Ilara," it murmured, "do not fear me." She wept, clutching her chest, and whispered, "I did this for you." The mirror's light dimmed to a deep crimson. "Then finish it," the voice replied, though its tone was no longer his. "End what remains of her." She froze. "She yet lives," it said. "The forest keeps her heart beating." The queen's gaze hardened. Her love, her grief, her guilt, all twisted into one terrible purpose. "Then I will find her," she said, "and I will have peace." In the palace corridors, the courtiers began to avoid her eyes. Mirrors were covered, silverware removed. Even water basins turned dark when she passed, yet still she felt watched. Sometimes, in the edge of her vision, her reflection would linger, staring long after she turned away. One evening, she caught it smiling, though her lips were still. She hurled the nearest candlestick. The mirror cracked, splintering the reflection into a dozen fragments, each fragment whispering her name in unison. "You cannot be rid of me." Her scream echoed through the palace like broken glass. When silence returned, she approached the cracked mirror, trembling. Each fragment showed a different face, one young, one aged, one monstrous, one serene. "Which am I?" she asked. The shards shimmered, voices overlapping. "All of them?" The reflection of her hand moved across the broken glass, bleeding where it touched. In the center, faint and flickering, Snow White's image appeared, alive, her eyes full of compassion. "You cannot destroy what is born of mercy," she said softly. Elara's hand trembled, torn between longing and rage. The mirror pulsed once, alive with malicious joy. "Bring me her heart, and you will be whole." Snow White awoke beneath a canopy of emerald leaves and morning mist. Her memory was a blur of terror and mercy. The huntsman's voice, the blade that never struck. Around her, the forest breathed. Trees older than kingdoms whispered through branches that shimmered with dew. A silver doe stood nearby, unafraid, watching her with eyes too human to be mere beast. When she rose, the air shifted, as though the woods themselves acknowledged her. A distant song moved through the trees, low and mournful, guiding her deeper. She did not know it yet, but this place remembered her name long before she was born. Days turned to weeks, and the forest became her world. She learned to drink from rivers that sang, to listen to roots whisper beneath her feet. The air was alive with voices she could not see. Women of wind and wood, their laughter both kind and sorrowful. One twilight they appeared faint silhouettes of the forgotten queens, the same spirits that haunted Elara's glass. They did not speak, but their touch filled Snow White's mind with visions, the mirror being forged in flame and grief, its heart a shard of the underworld's black glass. "You are not its prey," a voice finally said, "but its answer." In the heart of the forest, she found the ruins of a temple carved into stone roots. Inside stood a broken pedestal, and upon it, a shard of mirror, black as obsidian and alive with faint light. When she touched it, the world fell silent. Images flashed through her stepmother's sorrow, her father's death, the mirror's birth in fire. The fragment pulsed like a heart. "You share her blood," whispered the forest, "but you are her undoing." Snow White's tears struck the shard, and it trembled, softening its glow. The reflection that appeared was not hers, but Elara's, weeping, lost, afraid. That night she dreamt of Elara, not the queen, but the woman beneath the crown. She saw her standing before the mirror, whispering to the darkness, begging to see her lost love again. Snow White woke, trembling. Compassion battled fear within her chest. "She is not evil," she murmured to the trees, "only broken." The forest answered with a sigh of wind through its branches, carrying the faint sound of the mirror's whisper. "Mercy can break what hatred forged." Snow White rose, determination burning within her. The forest crowned her with blossoms and thorns, anointing her as its guardian. The first dawn of her new reign began. The forest itself began to change under her care. Trees bent gently when she passed, streams brightened, and animals followed her like shadows. Yet, in the reflection of still ponds, she sometimes saw not herself but Elara, pacing through her dim halls, whispering to the broken glass. "She is coming," the mirror would hiss to the queen. "The child of mercy brings your end." Snow White felt the pull, an invisible thread binding her to the woman she once called mother. She understood then. She could not flee forever. One heart had been broken, the other must heal it. And to do so, she would return. Winter returned early that year. The air was brittle, the sky heavy with snow, as if the world itself held its breath. Elara stood before the mirror, her eyes hollow from sleepless nights. The surface now shimmered like storm clouds caught in glass. "Why will peace not come?" she whispered. The mirror's reply was no longer gentle. It thundered within her chest. "Because she still lives." The voice filled the chamber, vibrating the floor beneath her feet. "Then bring her to me," Elara demanded. The mirror's light pulsed, forming the silhouette of the girl in the forest. "She is coming," it hissed, "and she brings your unmaking." At dawn, Snow White emerged from the forest's edge, her cloak lined with frost, her gaze steady. The castle loomed ahead, no longer home, but a shadowed heart she must enter. Behind her the forest sighed, its branches bending in farewell. The spirits whispered blessings, weaving light into her steps. Do not strike with hate, they warned. Only truth can end the lie. Snow White nodded, her heart both heavy and calm. Each footstep across the frozen earth carried the echo of countless queens before her, all walking toward their reflection. The gates opened as though expecting her. Inside, torches flickered weakly. No voices greeted her passage. Snow White walked the long corridor to the throne room, where Elara waited, crowned in shadow. The mirror stood beside her, gleaming like liquid night. "You live," Elara said, her tone trembling between awe and fury. "I do," Snow White answered, "and I forgive you." The mirror shrieked, a sound like steel tearing through glass. The torches flared, their flames bending toward the queen. "She lies!" cried the reflection, but, for the first time, Elara hesitated before believing. "Look, Snow White," said softly, stepping closer. "You have been speaking to your own sorrow, not a spirit." Elara's hands trembled. "You think I do not know my grief," she hissed. "You think I am blind?" The mirror's voice surged, a chorus of every queen who had ever looked within it. "She will take your crown, your beauty, your name." The glass rippled like water. Elara turned toward it, torn between rage and realization. "Then show me the truth," she demanded. The mirror obeyed. The image within it changed, showing her reflection not as queen, but as the lonely woman who once sought love in its depths. The illusion cracked. The glass began to fracture. Threads of light bled from the mirror's edges as both women stood before it. Mother and daughter, sinner and savior. "It fed on your pain," Snow White said, "but it cannot survive forgiveness." Elara's eyes filled with tears. The mirror screamed, its voice distorted by 1,000 echoes. "Without me, you are nothing." "Then let me be nothing," she whispered. Together, their hands met upon the surface. A pulse of blinding light filled the chamber as the mirror shattered, scattering shards across the marble floor like frozen stars. Silence followed, deep and absolute. The silence that followed the shattering was alive. Dust of light drifted through the throne room like falling stars. Elara knelt among the shards, her breath shallow, her hands trembling. Snow White stood beside her, watching the broken pieces shimmer faintly. The mirror's voice was gone, but in its absence came another sound. The whisper of the wind, the echo of their own hearts beating in unison. "It's over," Snow White murmured. Elara looked up, eyes hollow yet peaceful. "No," she said softly, "it's begun." In the fragments, both saw not lies or beauty, but simple, unbroken truth. They gathered the shards together, wrapping them in silk. Each piece pulsed faintly, as if remembering the lives it had consumed. "What will you do with it?" Snow White asked. "Return it," Elara replied, "to the earth from which it came." The two women left the palace under a dawn sky, the color of forgiveness. The snow had melted to a clear river that led toward the forest. Their steps echoed softly, no longer in conflict but in rhythm. The mirror's power had ended, but its lesson lingered. Truth is not a reflection, but the courage to face what is real. In the heart of the forest, where the ruins of the ancient temple stood, Elara knelt before the pedestal. "Forgive me," she whispered to the trees, the earth, the spirits that had once been trapped within her reflection. Snow White placed her hand upon her shoulder. "You were deceived by grief," she said, "but you chose truth." Elara smiled faintly. "Then let truth rest here." Together they placed the shards upon the stone. The earth trembled softly, roots winding around the glass, pulling it into darkness. A single beam of sunlight pierced the canopy, resting upon them both. As the shards disappeared into the soil, Ilara felt her reflection fade, not as loss, but release. The air shimmered with faint light, and from that glow stepped the spirit once bound to the mirror, no longer a voice of deceit, but a quiet, sorrowful figure. "You freed me," it said, "but the cost is your memory." Ilara bowed her head. "Then take it," she whispered. "Let me forget my sin." Snow White reached for her hand, but the queen's eyes grew distant, her smile soft. The spirit touched her brow, and in an instant she was gone. Only her crown remained among the moss. Snow White stood alone as sunlight spilled across the clearing. She placed Ilara's crown upon the altar, where flowers already began to bloom through the moss. "May truth guard this land," she whispered. Turning back toward the light, she walked through the forest, her reflection no longer shadowed by another's sorrow. Behind her, the wind carried the faintest echo, not of lies, but of a voice finally at peace. In the kingdom, the people would one day tell of two queens, one who broke the mirror, and one who broke the curse of her own heart.